When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Well, today we're going to talk about the U.S. food supply. One of the big things is preppers. You always think of food as the big, hard-to-get item, right? You know, I mean, obviously water's right up there, but, food is crucial to survival. And it also, when you're not worried about your food, you're able to focus on things that matter. And food production and stuff is a huge part of our energy as a prepper, is to get everything ready and set up like that. So we always talk about, having some long-term food storage, having our own gardens, being self-reliant, right? Being able to get all your supplies off your land. And that's the way you're most in control. Nobody can tell you what to do if you have everything you need at your, on your property or access to you, right? That might incorporate your neighbors, that kind of thing. But the more you produce on your own, the less anybody can tell you what to do. Also, I like to look at it as the less they can tax it, right? Which is kind of a nice thing. But let's look at that one step up as a country. The same principles really apply. So as a country, if we don't produce our own food or do it at the local level, local being the country, then we become dependent on what other people do, right? And so that was always one of the things during wars is getting supplies, right? How do you get the supplies you need? Well, do we have the ammo? Do we have the food to the soldiers? It turns out that matters. Well, the U.S. government, our country as a whole, has really shifted where our food comes from. And we're starting to have a really large food deficit, meaning that we import more things than, we're exporting. And also, so if we're importing it, that means we're not producing it for ourselves. And that's really the bigger concern. I don't care so much about the dollars as far as the trade. I care about, do we have the food to feed America? And right now we have the food, but it's because we buy it from somewhere else. And that's starting to really be a problem, because it used to be a big point of pride for the U.S. government that we produce like food for like 70% of the world or something.
Right. It used to be.
When I was a kid, we used to, the corn and was the big thing that we were just sending it everywhere. And now, do we even have enough to feed ourselves? So that's really, I wanted to, take a look at that, dig in and see what we could kind of figure out. Let's first talk about the trade deficit, Kevin, or what are your concerns?
Well, I mean, I think a big part of it is labor costs.
Okay.
Cost of labor all the way down the chain is a lot less expensive in a lot of foreign countries, Mexico.
And that definitely hurts us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So the cost of labor, I have wages. All right. Let's see. 2025, it basically, farm production expenses were $467 billion. That's up $12 billion from 2024. So that's a big jump right away. Wages are basically 42% of the budget when it comes to farming. So that's pretty significant. Labor costs, they're saying, are a 30% yearly, a yearly increase from where they were the year before. Um, inflation, fuel, feed, fertilizer, all that stuff, has been going up, and it just makes it harder and harder. But labor is a big thing.
I know when I was younger and I was like doing more manual labor type of work, I got paid a lot less than I make now. It seems like the harder you physically work, the less people are willing to pay you for it.
I think that's right. Because in their mind, they regard it as, oh, well, that's dumb people. It doesn't matter, or dumb, I can get anyone. I can go to the local gas station and get somebody to work. Now, it's been my experience personally that you can't just go grab anybody and find people willing to work. Turns out people just want to look at their phones. They don't want to do work. I don't want to do work. I can tell you that right now.
I used to carry bags of cement. It was terrible.
It was a terrible job. Horrible. But you're 100% right on it. Definitely, the easier the job gets, it seems like the higher you're paid. And, people are like, oh, I don't want to be a big corporate whatever, but, I don't know. Maybe we just want to be the CEO. I imagine that guy's under some stress though, Kevin.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever. Go with that one. Yeah. All right. So labor's hard. Now, we always, in our mind, and I think California, this may still be the case. I don't know. I'm not there. But in our mind, people are like, oh, well, we have all these immigrants that are doing the work. Now, I know you're saying, well, Trump's rounding them up and getting rid of them. Now we're not going to have any. But I think it's even more than that. Like I'm in the South. North Carolina is not exactly deep South, but we do a fair amount of farming in North Carolina. Right. Turns out Virginia peanuts, that's actually like a brand of peanuts. Not they
don't actually come from Virginia.
No, they don't come from Virginia. And so we make more Virginia peanuts in North Carolina than they do in Virginia. So that's kind of a weird one to me that, I was like, but it's not, I say it's a brand, but it's a type of peanut.
Right.
So, right. Like a specific style of peanut. And anyway, sorry, got off task there. It's a little, little promo for the state. You got to keep North Carolina looking good. That's the key. But anyway, what I was going to say is a lot of the farmers that are here in North Carolina are not able to use illegal workers like that. It's actually like inspected and a thing. And the Department of Labor, Department of Agriculture, these people are actually checking on it. And it's not as much, wild, undocumented people as you would think, at least here. Again, I can't speak to California and some of these states that are very anti-immigration laws. They're very, more open. So they might have a harder time enforcing that kind of thing there. But I know here and a lot of the places I've been lately, it's not exactly illegal labor. Any thoughts on legal labor there, Kevin, bringing the prices down?
Yeah.
A few.
I know there's a lot of people that say things like Americans, there's a lot of jobs Americans won't do. That's not true. I completely disagree with it. I think that there are jobs that Americans aren't willing to pay to have people do. You know what I mean? And
is that why I'm cutting my own grass?
That's why you're cutting your own grass. That's why you're cutting your own grass. Yep.
Sounds right.
I mean, there's a lot of shitty jobs out there that have to be done. You know what I mean? There's a lot of jobs that are physically hard. There are a lot of jobs that are, just kind of gross, like, working with sewage, the guy that pumps out the porta potties and stuff.
That guy probably has the worst job in the world. The guy who works at the sewer plant, Kevin.
The guy that picks up the trash, your local garbage man. Those are all jobs that actually pay decent amount of money because people don't want to do them,
Exactly.
So when they say that there's not jobs that Americans don't want to do, that's not the case. There's just jobs that people don't want to pay the real cost of. and physically
I think
bending
that's fair.
over all day and picking blueberries. It's not something that most people want to do. And
so that was one of the things. We had a guy die from heat stroke last year at one of the local farms. And that was one of the things that really started bringing in, a lot more labor stuff here where they're checking, and it's heat stroke. That stuff gets away from you. I know I've been to Texas, and when I was there, they were like, look, here's this thing full of water bottles. You need to be, grab one like every time you walk by it, because it matters. You need to be paying attention. We get those big water coolers from Lowe's or whatever you used to see back in the day. You get that out on the farm truck.
Yep.
I've seen it.
Yep.
All right. So it's more than just labor going up.
Right.
There's a lot of things. Like I said, it's also fuel. It's all your expenses for products, all your your tools. You spend some money on tools. You got tractors and implements and oh, dude, it's crazy. Let me tell you this little crazy story, a little side note that how we're screwing the farmer. And it's actually John Deere that's kind of leading the way on screwing the American farmer.
Yeah, it seems kind of strange, but that is
yeah, because you think of John Deere is like synonymous with farming, right? You see the big green tractor, there's country songs about your John Deere, right? So what they do is they make it that you can't work on your own tractor. And it's crazy things like, well, we still own it. It's weird.
Yeah,
like,
it seems like a real thing lately with a lot of equipment in the United States that they sell in the United States that you don't own it anymore. Yeah, technically you have to pay for it and buy it, but you can't.
Right.
It's not your property.
Well, they
license
the software, right? The software to run it, and you're like, we need software to run a tractor. Well, if you're at the adult level, you do. Like my tractor, I'm not at the big boy table yet, right? Like I have my little thing. It's got a bucket and big tires. To me, I'm like, I have a really big tractor. And if you had asked me when I was in New York, you showed me my tractor, I'd be like, that's a farm tractor. Yep. I'm small potatoes compared to, your big guys, right?
Right.
They have the real tractors and the things. They actually run software that does all the stuff. And when you have repairs, you need to go through, their through John Deere to get the repairs. And some of these are like a month, 2 months out in order to, get these repairs done.
Right.
So that's significant. So that hurts the farmer, right? And there's a lot of practices like that are really hurting them. But let's kind of segue here a little bit, where another big section that's hurting America is regulations.
Right.
And we make it hard, dude. The government likes to get in the way. And I think the big problem is the laws seem to be based on emotion rather than reality. Or, the probability. So if you have a scary virus that comes from something and whatever, and it has a scary name, you're going to get Ebola from your, something that somebody's growing. Obviously that's not the case. I'm just making up some scary thing. And
scary.
Ebola is pretty freaking scary. You tell me about, blood coming out of my eyeballs or something. I'm scared about that. I don't want to get that. Well, we act very reactionary to things. And that kind of thing is how we do it in America. And that's how we write laws.
Yeah.
And so what it is they'll come up with these diseases for the cattle or different things. And they're like, oh, you need to, do all these checks at random, or this has to be processed at a USDA facility. And it's things like that where, you can't butcher your own cow. I understand. We want things safe, right? But it ends up streamlining things in a certain way. I talk to farmers and they're like, oh, we grow our own beef and we're grass-fed 100%, which in my mind isn't exactly what you want. You like to mix in a little fat. You don't want it to be
yeah, you want them some marbled steaks, right?
But yeah, we won't talk about that. But imagine you pasture raise your cattle and they're nothing but grass fed the entire time. However, we're going to require you to use a USDA meat processing facility. Well, when you send the cattle off to that processing facility, they're going to feed as much crappy corn while they're in the holding stocks into those cows because they're trying to bump up the weight.
Right.
Because then when they process it, it weighs more. So they're like, hey, we'll get them really stuffed. Now they're, 10% fatter.
Mm-hmm.
And now all your efforts at doing things the right way just got sabotaged.
Right.
Right. And so then we end up with kind of iffy stuff. Kevin, you want to talk about meat coming in from other countries? Does that upset you in some way?
Yeah. No,
yeah.
there's definitely like some big arguments going on lately about importing beef from Argentina, and it's lower quality beef or such and such. I mean, Argentina beef is grass raised, generally speaking. They're very proud about their beef quality.
Okay.
I've been to Argentina. They have a lot of cows. They have a lot of beef. Barbecuing is like literally the sign of how manly you are, is how well you barbecue. You know what I mean?
They do take cattle serious.
They take it serious.
And they're considered like serious cowboys.
Right.
When you see the Argentinian guys. Like that's where cowboying
that's still
really happens.
Yeah, that's still a real job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We watch like Yellowstone and whatever, and they're pretty tough, and we all dream are like, yeah, I wish I was as manly as that guy and whatever. But Argentina, they're actually doing it. They really are that too, and obviously I'm sure there's guys who run ranches that way in the US. Absolutely. I'm certain of it. But I will say Argentina, they take it seriously. You want to walk around with a belt buckle and some pride?
Yeah.
Argentina might be the place for you. I'm just saying.
Yeah. However, there are less regulations on the beef that's being imported to the United States from Argentina.
That's one of the things that creates the deficit, though. That's where a big part of the huge thing happens. So we have all these regulations and restrictions in the US, and then all they have to do is show up, and like 1 out of 1,000 packets of meat is getting inspected at the border.
Right.
And we'll even take it one further. One of the big things that pisses off the American farmer is labeling. So you could take your cow that's been raised anyway or inexpensive with cheap labor, no regulations, send it to America, hits a U.S. processing facility, and be like, yeah, that's American beef because it was processed here.
Right.
And they had it here. So, I mean, yeah, it was born over there. But, I mean, don't we all consider people who are born in another country as American when they're here in America? You know what I'm talking about. All right. So that's kind of the thing, though, is the labeling isn't exactly consistent. And what they want to talk about is like the farmers I talk to are like, we need some kind of labels that are like born and raised in the US, born, raised, and processed in the US, something that encompasses the whole thing rather than, well, it was raised in America for 3 months.
Right.
And, or a week or a day or, whatever, that kind of thing. So consistency in labeling could really help and would make a difference. And that's something that we neglect. But bottom line, regulations and cost of labor are huge on what's killing the farmer. Now, because of that, one of the next things we really have a problem with is the age of the U.S. farmer. So I know in North Carolina, we just had our agriculture meeting, and they said it was 57 is the average North Carolinian farmer age. Average age is 57. I'm looking, the U.S. average is 58.1. So
that they're actually young spring chickens down there in North Carolina.
And I gotta say, dude, so I hate to admit this out loud, but I'm 50 and I know everything hurts. So it turns out if you do work, your body, it takes a toll. And when you hit even just 50, you're like, ooh, things are kind of
things are a little creaky.
A little creaky.
I know I'm at the age where if I'm on the ground, I have to make a noise to get up. You know what I mean? Like
the noise to get up. Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm just thinking 57 and you got me doing farm work. That sounds pretty horrible. The wife always says that I'm not really a farmer or whatever because we have this stuff here. But she's like, well, I do gardening. I might be a farmer, but you're definitely not a
You're not a
farmer.
farmer.
And I'm not a farmer. But I want to point out that I go out with the tractor and I tear some up. So I can get some square footage tilled and bring some volume to the table.
Mhm.
And I just have to point out she's giving me dirty looks from across the room. I'm
Mhm.
just saying. But who gets up and feeds the animals every morning? See, there's some. Now she would say, well, I feed the animals in the afternoon. But yeah, let's focus on the morning,
Mhm.
right? Getting up early, that's when farming happens. It's the getting up early. But anyway, so that said, now I lost track with all my crazy stories. But the bottom line is, we go out, we do it, and even at the small level, it just we need to start bringing it back to America. We
Mhm.
need to make it where these guys can take it to fruition without it costing you. And if you're 50, 50 and it hurts, I imagine 57, it's really going to hurt.
Mhm.
And we're just getting older and older because nobody wants to do it. No, and I don't mean because we're all lazy. I mean because it's like the government is fighting you
Right.
while you're doing it,
Right. Why would you be
And you
super eager to get into a job that's extremely volatile, and even when everything works out right, like the profit margin is slim?
is nothing.
Mhm.
So that's it. They were saying like tobacco now. Now I understand people are like tobacco. Well, that's because we don't like cigarettes and they're bad and we don't want. But it turns out that's one of the big things that come up at the North Carolina Farm Bureau is tobacco because
Because that's what
turns
they
out
grow.
it's one of the things we do really well here, right? And now, mind you, we do a lot of cotton. And they were excited. They're like, you know what? We're going to make 100% North Carolina cotton t-shirt company. That, we do it with our cotton and whatever. Because again, South America, they're starting to take over all the cotton and, that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is we got to make it that people want to do it here and it's worth doing. So I was saying that tobacco is like 23 cents a pound. And you got to realize you got to dry the tobacco. You got to do all this stuff. You have like 30 steps to getting tobacco ready. And then you're getting 23 cents a pound.
Right.
It's like, you guys are killing me, And beef, the margins are so thin. And now I know you're like, well, I go to the grocery store, Chuck, and beef's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
It's actually the food processing.
Mhm.
And what did I hear? It's BlackRock that actually owns all the meat processors in the US. Did you know that? That's kind of one of those weird things that you wouldn't think of.
Yeah, when you get a monopoly on something, you can charge a huge price on
And
it.
they
Yeah,
charge
it's crazy, right?
So that's one of the big things. And remember, if you think back earlier in the episode, I actually pointed out that we're all required to use a USDA meat processing facility.
Right.
And then I tell you that evil corporations that people are terrified of are the ones who own the meat processing facilities.
Mhm.
You're starting to see a pattern coming together here. You might
Yeah,
see
and I
where
don't
I'm
believe
going.
that all corporations are evil, but BlackRock definitely is.
but that one in particular.
That one specifically,
So,
yeah, that's an evil corporation.
That we can get behind, so that's the thing there. So just keep that in mind that, as the farmers get older, and then how often, so imagine you have this crappy fight, right? Where it's hard work. I have to go out there and do brutal. Now, Americans used to kind of pride themselves on hard work. And I think I don't know. I don't know what to say about this because I know people I work with are all like kind of proud of the hard work.
Well, people love to say nobody wants to work anymore, but I don't know anybody that's working
that's not working
40 hours a week. Everybody's working more than 40 hours a week that I know. Mhm.
I mean, I know you do see a fair bit of doom scrolling on their phone or whatever it is, but maybe it's because people are so exhausted mentally that they're
Right.
like, yeah.
What are you gonna do? Your brain doesn't work after doing that shit for 10 hours every
after
day.
you're nonstop out slaving.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal how much we work, and everybody's out there doing the best they can. and you just want to, kind of get ahead. And so if you grow up as a farm kid and you see how hard mom and dad or grandpa are working, and you're like, man, and the debt, because you got to figure, right? You spend all this money on seed for your animals, or to grow fields of cotton, corn, whatever, soy, whatever you're doing. You buy all this seed, and it's expensive. It's not cheap. Seeds are, dude, we spend so much money on seeds at my house. It's crazy. And you buy all this stuff, and then you get an early frost or something, and you lose whole stuff, or you get a hailstorm and it takes out the wheat field, right? And so you're taking huge risks, and it might end up bad, and all your year's effort got lost, or half your year's effort, right? Got lost. And that's why people are like, diversify, do different things. Well, it's hard to do that. And then you have to rotate, what you can do in this field now, because you might not be able to grow it next year because the nutrients get depleted, right? And so you bring in different stuff. Bottom line is, there's a lot of cost and a lot of headache, and it's for super thin margins, and you're right at the edge, and then you might lose. So when the kids are like, do we take over the farm, or do I take dad's 100 acres, 1,000 acres, whatever it is, and sell it to the developer who will give me a couple $1,000,000 for the land, and I can just turn that into, my pocket and go be happy. Turns out people are like, yeah, I think that's maybe the better option, because if I give my kids $1,000,000, they can maybe do something fun with it. Right. But everyone's like, yeah, the farming, that kind of sucks. I'm not going to do it. There's flies and bugs and snakes and dirt.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are just dumb like me, who are like, you know what? I like to go play in the dirt. Let's just do it.
Let's start doing some of this.
Let's make our own farm,
Exactly.
So my wife would say, really, it's her and not me. But, I still drive a tractor. I'm just saying, let me keep that point clear.
Now, one of the other big things that we haven't touched on yet is soil degradation. It's been going on in the United States for a long time, and it's getting worse every year. So people are importing a lot of fertilizer. Fertilizer is produced in a lot of countries that aren't the United States, and
which is kind of weird. You'd think that moving dirt would be expensive.
It would be expensive, right? But a lot of it is imported, and the chemicals that they use on a lot of these chemicals that they use on crops are long term. They build up in the soil and have negative consequences. It's very profitable to do monoculture.
Yeah.
Where you just grow the same product. It's very cost effective until that soil is depleted. And then that's just it.
Right.
That's about it.
Well, the thing is, and that's part of that problem though, is they're like, oh, but we can just bring in this chemical and spray it all on top, and new nitrogen in the soil, and everything's good. And we just, come and spray it. It was funny. We watched a documentary on, it was like one of the evils of Monsanto or something along that line. And they were talking about, doing the chemical farming. And the big thing is like Roundup, right? They want to sell you seeds that don't die when you spray Roundup on it.
Right.
And it's different stuff now. We're not really using Roundup because it sounds evil and whatever.
Right, because it gives you spray chemicals,
so
on a different name on it.
Right,
so that one doesn't get cancer.
So that you're good. I mean, nobody's proven this name would do it, right? So they go in and it makes it resistant to, we'll say, the Roundup, right? Makes it resistant to Roundup, so you can come spray it, kill everything else, but not that. And then you have to buy the expensive seeds, and you have to buy the chemicals to spray on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at first, it seems like a good idea, because that first year, your crops are like, yay, everything's awesome. And they said, comparing it to organic farming, which means, just not using the spray and the seeds, that it basically, the marker is about 8 years. And after about 8 years, you have just killed that soil with the chemicals and the depleting every last little bit out of there. And then organic farming starts to win, because you still have the land, and you
the
still have
soil
the
still
soil,
grows things, right?
and you're good. But it's so easy to say, well, I can do it now. Now that you can also get into the craziness of, they talk about, seeds are just like people and whatever, where, they breed with each other and do different things. And so if somebody grows their chemical seeds, a lot of the seeds produced by like Monsanto or whatever were sterile and would not reproduce into new seed. Like they wouldn't make
Right.
new seeds that you can plant. So you had to go back and buy them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is, if I use all organic, nice corn seeds, and the farm next to me uses hybrid seeds that are, chemically, or what is the word I want to say? Genetically modified,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody goes in with the tweezers and, sets it up, right? They make the perfect seed. Well, if they use those and I use mine, they're going to get together, and then mine will take on some of the attributes of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get into trouble. And yours can become sterile and not work and that kind of thing. So that's where you run into problems. That's why they always say, oh, you want heirloom seeds, right?
Right.
You always hear about that. So you can plant heirloom seeds, and that you'll be able to replant the next seeds.
Right.
But
and you won't have to keep buying them every year.
Bees and everybody spread pollen and things and move back and forth, and they all kind of mix together, and they all kind of become bad. That was a big fear they had. I don't hear anybody talking about that anymore, but that's actually one of the secret reasons they have like the big seed vaults.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
always hear up in like Antarctica or whatever. The reason they're keeping seeds is because we're destroying most of the seeds that we have here.
Yeah.
By messing with things and
And a lot of people don't talk about this, but if you're growing plants in depleted soil, like, how you have the nutrition value, like, corn has this value of nutrition, broccoli is this, has these things in it. But if you're growing it in depleted soil, it's not going to have the nutritional value. You have the negative of having to eat vegetables, and then the other negative of not getting none of the benefits of it. So it's, it's definitely something that is an issue in the United States that's getting worse. It's not, it's not getting better. We don't have a quality solution for it. We don't have a inexpensive solution for it, I guess would be a better way to say it. Another issue that is starting to hit the United States is water scarcity. People have been growing food and using underground aquifers, pumping the water up. And you can do that for years and years, but eventually you pump more than the aquifer is filling, and you're going to run out of water, and people are running out of water. And there's more and more droughts over the past 15 years that is, causing crops to fail, which we saw all the investment you put into it, and now you have a bunch of dead plants.
Right. Absolutely. That's a big thing on both the left coast and the Midwest, where they're really suffering with that kind of stuff. And that's, believe it or not, affects your beef and your cattle like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it, because obviously you need water to keep your livestock alive. And, there is a limited amount of water, and it definitely has taken a toll on the farmer. So I don't know. The big takeaway did you have something to wrap up on that with the water?
Well, I was just going to say, I just saw on the news the other day that Tehran in Iran, the capital of Iran, they're going to have to move. They're going to have to move the whole damn city because there's no water left. They just ran out of water. So like they can't support the people. And there's a lot of agriculture around the city that, that draws a lot of the water too, that, it's just not enough anymore.
Well, there's that weird aquifer with Gaddafi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the big thing that, he was trying to run that whole thing down there?
Yeah.
Africa, Iran, it all gets
it's mixed up. They're not even close to each other. They're several thousands of miles apart, but it's all right. It's the same principle.
No, my point is the principle,
yeah.
Right? You got it.
I mean, obviously Iran isn't close to the Midwest either, it's
they're not connected.
Apples and oranges, but it is a legitimate
those
problem.
Are like deserts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those are deserts, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the Midwest.
Midwest is going to be a desert.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So bottom line, the thing is, the reason I bring this up is that's why, as preppers, one, you need to think about, do I have my own stuff that comes local? Can I get animals? Can I get water? Can I get, grow my own stuff where I'm providing for myself, right? That's your small way of becoming the solution as opposed to part of the problem, right? I know that if America stops, if we went to war or something like that, and people wanted to turn against us and say, hey, we got your food. You can't have anything without us. The way around that is, well, I do have something because it's in my backyard. I got the cow. I got the pigs and the rabbits and the chickens, and I can take care of myself. That's one. Two, we could talk to our politicians, right? We can vote both with our wallet, although me and Kevin were talking about this a little bit before. Voting with your wallet is pretty hard these days because everybody does seem to be like on a budget where there's only so much we can be discretionary or picky with. It's kind of, people are shopping out of desperation now, a lot of people.
Right.
And that's just,
you're not going to the local farm stand. You're going to, the cheapest grocery store on the other side of town because
that's what I can afford. Right. It's, so you got to think about that. So one, I mean, if you have the ability, shopping, voting with your wallet is awesome. Two, voting, right? Turns out somewhat voting matters. I mean, you can kind of affect things in a tiny, minuscule way. You can do that. You can also try and talk to your politicians and like raise awareness, right? When you make things an important issue, then it kind of affects and shapes the direction that we go. When people are informed and aware, then they can, kind of take the world in a better direction. So that's something to think about. One of the things I saw the other day, Kevin, was kind of concerning. They were talking about the pharaohs in Egypt and the slaves. Basically, what made them slaves was everything they grew on the pharaoh's land, they had to give 20% to the pharaoh. And they were talking about 20% was the mark for, slaves.
Yeah.
And they were like, where are we at in the US on how much we have to give? I'm just saying.
Yeah. I know that I don't make that much money, but when I see my paycheck, there's about 40% missing. And I know some of the stuff is not necessarily taxes, but it's taxes.
It's taxes. I mean, it's not income tax, but it's taxes. But anyway, just something to keep in the back of your mind of, freedom. And freedom comes with independence, right? That's really what it's all about is, so if I provide my own food, I have my own animals, I produce my own water, I have a well or I have whatever, then every step you take, the more you're in control of your life and your outcome. And that's always the goal. I mean, that's what we're always building towards.
That's right.
That's what I got. So you have comments, thoughts, like, subscribe, all that stuff, comments, and put them in there. Otherwise, you can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. If you have insight, you want to get in touch with us, you want to hear about a certain topic, we'd love to, accommodate you. Otherwise, I would say stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah?
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.